After harvest, we begin applying fertilizer for next year's crop. Right here you're seeing corn-on-corn nitrogen application, as well as the 4620 on a 235 20-foot disc, just knocking down some stalks. This was only 30 acres that will be going back into corn again next year. And yes, a turbo till would be better suited than that disc, but we do not own one, nor want to spend the $97,000 right now to buy one. And that was a pre-COVID price, so it's probably about $150,000 now, just educated guess. Well, we had a record cold snap, but now it's warmed back up. We probably got 10 good working days. When that cold snap hit, we actually froze out because it was just so cold so long that the ground conditions, everything just lost temperature and we froze out. But we've since been able to get back into the fields. You can even see some of the snow laying along the terraces still. We've got about 3 inches of snow here. But we're working, and it's actually working quite well. So, time to get product on while we can get it done. We got that farm done, so we'll get moved here on to the next. Alright, we're up and rolling on this farm. Anybody familiar with the western side of the highway? That's Highway 71. Good, still a little snow melting by the edge of the terraces, but we're working good. The fields really kind of blew off, just snow piled up, didn't amount to much. Anhydrous ammonia, the good part of it is you can apply it spring or fall. I like to get it done in the fall, especially as late as it is. It doesn't really tend to leach. And this work is already done for spring. We're making strips, which help with some warm up. This bar is an 18. I should go to 16 with it. They're actually all 16 row bars or configurations. They just make up the toolbars. They move the shanks around. So if you get like a 17, the knives are actually where the tires are at. So they'll put the knives behind the tires so that it doesn't smash it down. But you're still packing it, then trying to cut it open. As the actual on-the-road machine is applying it to where it's going in between the tires, which I like a lot better. Now, we're using the UFCs and hyders here. I don't know if I recorded any, but when the videos kind of started was we were running through some Ag Choice and hyders and moving. Now their tanks were a little different undercarriages than these tanks. They're using the UFC here is using a Dalton brand undercarriage. I'm not too thrilled with this whole undercarriage design. But if you guys can see out there in that outer end, or go watch the video where I talked about this toolbar. This is, again, it's a 16 knife. They bolt that extension on out there. And what I don't like is the back unit's the outer unit, then you got your extension gauge wheel. And then this wheel here, your main wing wheel, is in a ways. So what I've come to find, or what happens in my opinion, is it kind of acts like a skateboard with the wheels in the center instead of wheels on each end that wants to do this number. And that outer end, as you go over a hump, it doesn't fall very well. So if you can keep that knife closer to that tire, it has a better chance of falling the ground up and down. Now I'm going 6 mile an hour, 5 to 7 is where I've been pulling this. Probably could go a little more in places. Other places I probably shouldn't be going as fast. Generally speaking, we apply this 6 to 8 inches depth in the fall. There are some guys that do run the high-speed bars in the fall and only go like 4 inches deep. In my opinion, it's a mistake. I don't really have personal data to go off of, just some neighbors that tried it. So 6.5, 7, maybe that's kind of the sweet spot that I've found on our farm in our soils. Working good. John Deere does have a new strip till rig, which I talked about in the last video. It's not really new. It's just a repainted Soil Warrior, which in my opinion is a great dual placement machine. And I would love to have one. I'm assuming, and I don't know, so I don't have a quote on there, not even pricing the John Deere one yet. I'm assuming that thing's over 300,000. So yeah, I'd still need the dry spreader to do anything for going on like stock ground, unless we want to strip that too. But I don't see the point of stripping that for what we're doing. So, or especially lime, you can't run lime with that machine. So, great machine, but I don't know. I just don't feel like writing kind of a check. This Toolbar here was enough. This was a sketch. So yeah, it's working good. Again, though, I do think I am going to go back to a 16 and just remove the extension, and that'll get me on row with the planter. It'll pull just a little bit easier, even though this tractor's handling it very well, and it just seems like you'll kind of eliminate that rock effect. The next model up Toolbar, this is a 2500. The next model up is a 3500 if you buy it in the Under First series, which is available in red and green, but it's a blue jet. Now if you actually buy the house name Blue Jet, it'll become in blue, and it will be a Legacy or a AT6020 would be your models. So this would be the Legacy, and these are the same main frame and same wing frame, but the difference is the outer wings on the next model up. The outer wing also has another truck tire and hydraulic cylinder, and it floats independently. Now they gear that up for the larger toolbars, and the outer wing would have more flex to it. I think if you were going like 24.5, which is too big for our area, by the way, but I think it would work real good. But they do have an overlap in size, so if you were like this toolbar is an 1830 right now, 1630 main, like I say, main frame or main design. So there is an overlap, and they do an 1830 in the next model up. But in right here, right as I'm running right here, there's a prime example. We got a low spot, and that wing's wanting to ride out high. And if we were closer to that tire on that 16 shank, you can see that coulter's not turning there as we go on out. So if that was the flex off that next model up, you'd be golden. Or if I just narrow this down to 16, I'd also be golden. But at the 1830 level, it's just a little nip tuck in a few places, because it's kind of like running a non-flex bar in ground conditions where you really need to have a flex bar. But I think if you had the bigger, heavier wings on the next model up, on a larger toolbar, you'd be okay. But I think as far as running an 1830, where you're only going to have 2 or 3 knives out there, and then that wing does not actually tie down tight and it's trying to flex, I don't know if it'd have enough weight on it to penetrate the ground or not, especially in hard clay conditions like we have. So that's why we didn't go with that model. The only difference is, again, the outer wing, they have a longer front hitch. Otherwise, it's the same toolbar. That way the company can manufacture and utilize a minimal manufacturing setup, but get a lot of different models and designs out of the base. And you know, like any company, sometimes they push model design a little too far, making things one off is a little better than try to utilize an L bracket here or some tie down there to make, you know, it from every which way from Sunday. And I kind of feel like they pushed that threshold on this toolbar. So I will probably be, like I say, taking it back to 16. I don't know. I'm conflicted on it. But I just think in the rougher soils, that, you know, if it was pulled back a little bit, it would actually function a little better. 16 on 30 is 40 feet, and 18 on 30 is 45 feet. But as far as like other bars that we've had, I am impressed with it. It's a heavy build. It's got a good shank and knife assembly. I think the John Deere toolbar we had would have been a hell of a competitor with it, maybe even a little bit better than the shank assembly. Probably not as good as the colders or the closers as this one, but they don't build them anymore. John Deere does build like a 24 knife or a big one, but they do not build their 12 to 16 to 25 10s. They're gone. And I can tell after this cold snap that we're tightening up. Our ground's a lot tighter than it was. Probably a little bit of frost we're actually going through. It's a little rotten frost. It's about 2 inches of fluff, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of frost. It was kind of rotting. It's going out, so we got about 6 more good working days. That should be gone. Then we're going to go back to deep freeze. But just going in the conditions like this versus where we were prior to, I can tell it's not pulling as easy. And it's just working up a little bit rougher. It's sealing good and everything, so we're good to go. But I would prefer to have got done or had a little longer fall without that bigger record-setting cold snap. And we were right on the edge of that snow line. Des Moines, which would be our state capital on the east, I mean, they really got hammered with snow. So we kind of got lucky here and didn't have a huge amount of snow. And to the west of us, they really didn't have any. And we just ran out of anhydrous, so we will go get a new tank put on and grab some lunch. All right, we're gonna put this tank here out of the way in the stock field. First thing we're gonna do is shut all these valves off, and then we'll unhook the pin and we'll get pulled away from it. I'm venting that off, and those couplings there, bleeding that off. We got a winds carrying it away. Some guys really say you need a lot of safety equipment, whatever. I'll squint, but you just gotta use your head. It's a dangerous product, but you just gotta use your head. You there, drape a cigarette out of the corner of your mouth, go gangbusters. It doesn't really bother me that bad, but I'm not a dumbass and stand in the cloud either. And while I'm out here unhooking, I like to look around. I just found this assembly here was loose. A lot of these were loose when we got this bar. Apparently Anhydrous having staffing issues too. This is the 18th knife, mounts out here in the end. They put the extension for the gauge wheel, otherwise that gauge wheel will be here going forward right along the edge of this frame, which is along knife 16. You can also see on knife 16 it's pretty close to that wheel. Travels with that wheel pretty well, but as you get farther and farther out, that wheel does this. That means he's going in and out of the ground worse and worse. So that again is what we're thinking. Maybe we'll take it back to the 16, which would be removing this, removing that extension, putting that gauge wheel here, and just do a cap off of that assembly. Otherwise, things are looking pretty good, but just got a few nuts and bolts to tighten up. Obviously, anything new can be expected to have to do a little setup work. This bar was a little worse than normal, but we're getting it. Do an infield check here. Show you guys the machine a little bit while it's down and in the field. Show you the strips it's building. You can see how it's pulling everything in nice and neat. And this is a nice fluffy strip, really well burned. Really like the way that's tilling. We're running plenty deep there. At the top of the weld bead of that knife would be about your 6-inch mark. So going plenty deep right now, probably an inch or two deeper we need to be going. We'll shallow that up a little bit, but overall looking pretty good. Running nice and flat. This bar
does well once it's down the ground just because of the way they designed the clearance on it. This is the big tire option here on the wings. You can see how we got all the adjusters and everything put where they're supposed to be so that they're not in harm's way.
This is a little bit of a multi-piece video, but if you're really interested in this toolbar, you can go back and watch the video I did a couple videos ago about this toolbar, and specifically about some of the factory options that are available. Overall, my review of this toolbar is it is a good toolbar. I am glad that we went with this toolbar. If I could go back and reorder it, I would have just not ordered the 18th shank out there. I just would have stayed with 16, which again, it's just pulled on anyway. So, or you want to add to it or delete it, you can quite easily. And again, I don't know whether I will be or won't be. The 385 wing tire option, I'm not sure I would have ordered that tire option either. It's a bigger tire option. It seems like it just kind of plugs up the hole out there, you know, the area for the tire a little worse than maybe the standard tire would have. And on the centers, I ordered the 385 22.5 truck tire option. You can get a single 385 34 tractor tire, mechanical front tractor tire, just two of them. You can get that as an option as well. And I may have done that. So if I could reorder this bar, I'd probably order it exactly the same, with the exceptions of, I think I would have went with this shank. They do have another higher capacity spring shank, but probably would have went with this shank again. But probably would have went with the single tractor tires. Just gives a little more clearance instead of 2 tires instead of 4. And probably would have went with the standard wing wheel tire and then a 16 knife configuration. But that's just me. But overall, I think the bar's a good bar. I think Blue Jet's got a pretty good product. But like anything, there's always room for a little improvement. Could this toolbar be set up as a dual placer? Absolutely it could, with the Montag cart, Montag system. That probably would be as good as about anything on the market right now. The new John Deere, again, which is a Soil Warrior, I feel is one of the better strip till rigs on the market. And they offer that with a shank knife if you're wanting to do it Anhydrous, or you can go as a triple coulter, one in the front and 2 each side. So it's a triple coulter, and that'll just do the dry. Now, for any maybe non-farmers that watch the channel, why we use Anhydrous? It's nitrogen. It's that simple. Nitrogen is your #1 key component for growing anything grass related, which corn is a grass type plant, and the #1 key ingredient to grow good grass, good corn, is nitrogen. As to how much of this we apply, you need to go online to a usage or a rate calculator. And there's multiple apps even on your phone where you can get those to see what your corn is going to need as to what your expected yield goal is. And as to what your yield goal is what you hope it's going to be, but you also have to have logic when you use that because of maybe past or what you think the weather is going to do. And it's always a guessing game. Additionally, you have to consider what your cation exchange capacity is, which is basically what your giant sponge, the earth, is going to hold at one time. So if you take a farm with a 17.9, how you determine that is that would be times 10 is 179 pounds. So if you come out on a farm that has a 17 cation exchange capacity, 170 pounds of nitrogen is what that's going to hold. You go putting 220 on it, it's just going to go out in the air. You're not going to be able to hold it. How you hold it on ground that's thinner like that is you have to have the plant use up what's there, then go apply more. Now, I believe it's V6 to V10, somewhere in that stage is where corn really needs the nitrogen the most. So that's why a lot of guys dual apply and split apply. And if you want to go up in yield goals, you can also split apply. Now here we are in the western Iowa area, the southern area of Iowa, southwest corner. And our soils, the glacial till runs out to the north of us. We are a pretty tight clay here, so and we have some decent organic material, at least on our farm. So we're able to generally hold a pretty good amount of anhydrous ammonia or nitrogen or any product for that fact. So we're able to hold quite a bit, but not every single farm is able to hold maybe what the yield goal potential is. Any farmer is going to want the top tier prices, which usually come from a lack of a product, meaning like a drought or something's happened. But they want that best crop. They want to be that 1 in 10 guy that gets a good crop. And every farmer wants a really good gangbuster crop. I don't know many guys that are happy to just do a terrible job and get crop insurance. So what I've learned over the past, at least few years, when I've really applied myself to farming here in the last few years, is what kind of things can you do to get a better crop? Now this year we had 16.4 inches, and that's if we don't get more toward the end of the year, which we're probably not, but we had 16.4 inches of rainfall. That's not total precip, had a little snow, but 16.4 inches of rainfall, which is extremely low, like a foot of rain below average for us. So it's highly unlikely it'll happen next year, so we're planning on probably a better year going forward next year than we did or had this year. Hopefully. You never know, but hopefully. And again, it's always a guessing game. But if you're out there and you're applying for a 200 bushel crop and you get a year where you're a foot below on rain, and now you're getting 140 bushel or 120 bushel crop, whatever it is, and you got all this extra anhydrous or nitrogen in the ground, it will start eating up your calcium, chewing up through your lime, and that could cost you more money. So it's important to try to plan ahead accordingly, and maybe if you have the right application, the right places to do so, maybe use a little bit lighter amount of product, like what we're doing right now. Use a lighter amount than what your corn crop's going to need, or maybe figure on a 135 bushel corn crop. And if you absolutely get no rain, doesn't even come to the ground, you're not out so much input. And then go in later and add to it, supplement it. And even if you went to a full 200 bushel corn crop with what you're putting on right now, and then you do get a lot of rain, you got potential of a 300 bushel corn crop, you should still be side dressing adding it. So what I've been coming to find out is that you really, the one and done old adage application seemingly is a thing of the past. And your best returns on investments, that's what you need to look at. And I had a guy come to me the other day, and he's got some really good ground that out yielded us. Now his ground's all paid for, so he's got a sweet deal, but he could get a really good crop off the ground. So I was just thinking, it's like, wow, that's disappointing, because you always want your yield monitor to outweigh everybody else's. And then you get thinking about, well, what's his net income level? So if you went out and you had two identical farmers, and one bought a $5,000 an acre farm and the other bought a $10,000 an acre farm, of course the $10,000 is probably a CSR, or corn suitability rating, much higher than the $5,000 an acre land. So in other words, his per acre land payment, if he's buying, it's much more expensive. Yield doesn't always mean the most income. It's always fun, like I say, to get big numbers, but it doesn't always mean that you're making the most money. It might just means that you're handling more of it. Return on investment, in my opinion, or what I've been doing on our own operation, is much more important than just throwing everything at it, including the kitchen sink, because again, it all comes down to return on investment. And it's a lot easier to gauge a crop as you see it growing than it is to totally 100% know the forecast a year in advance. So in my opinion, you should do your split applied in as an on need be basis. So if we come out here and we're going to put down nitrogen in the fall with expectancies of 175 bushel acre corn crop next year, and we get a lot of rain next year, it's looking like we have potential of getting 250 bushel acre corn, we can go back and add nitrogen to it. Now if we came out here in the fall and we put down 140 pounds of nitrogen and hopefully getting 140 bushel corn next year, or whatever your formula is, and we see that we're in a drought, then we don't apply anymore, and we're time ahead. So I just see a lot of advantage to split applying. What I'm also seeing that guys are doing a lot of now, we're in an anhydrous area that we have tried liquid in here, but we used to do it when we sprayed it on top. And there are areas in the United States that still do that. If it rains in, you're fine, but as I said, we didn't get much rain this year, and typically speaking, we are drier over here
in the western area. We don't have irrigation here either. We can't rain it in. So it's a bit sketchy. It can be volatile and go off. Where this anhydrous really binds up good with the soil. So we've had a lot better response with anhydrous. And if you want to go to my second channel where I talked about it more, there are controversies with it, but a lot of those are false. There's a lot of bad publicity. But in our area, we get the best response out of anhydrous. But if you did want to use a liquid in, you could go back in with like a 2x2x2 bander on your planter, or 3x3, whatever. Put part of it on then and come back later and supplement it later. And our guys doing that, they'll go out, like I mentioned, that Soil Warrior in the fall, run in just the dry fertilizer, plant right on top, your P and your K, your traces. Then for nitrogen, run in part of it with the planter and come back later again with more. Basically, we're going to be doing the same process as that, except just by applying it as anhydrous partially in the fall. I personally am a firm believer that a dual placement machine, or having that ability to get everything down in the strip is the way to go. Whereas we're going to be actually returning to a broadcast, but that's just because of the price of the equipment. You do put down a little more fertilizer in a broadcast situation, but we maybe add the Montag to this eventually. I don't know. Time will tell. But again, it's just all return on investments. It's price per fertilizer, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you got the most yields, that you got the most revenue. As I just mentioned, the price of buying land, you take a guy who is a top yielder and he paid $10,000 an acre for that ground. He went out and he spent $400 an acre on fertilizer, and he'd get 220 bushel. We're getting 145, but we don't even have anywhere near the cost, and the land was cheaper. Who really did better at the end of the day? Also, you need to look at production capabilities and what it costs per hour just to run something like we're in a tractor. I've been on some really good ground before where I was able to do 96 acres in 4 hours with a 12-knife dual placer toolbar, and I've moved the exact same rig on the exact same amount on another farm that was much rougher in the hills, and we did 73 acres in 12.6 hours. There's just so much formulas and factors, and it's a per farm basis, per tract of dirt differentiation. It's just, there's so much that could go into this. There's so many videos. Anyway, love this 9R 440. Really tickled with it. John Deere slam dunk here. The toolbar, overall, pretty happy with it. I would buy it again. I like it. I will be keeping this for long term. And I might change a few options on it. Just that's the good part of it. Everything's a nut and bolt on it. I may change a couple things on it that would suit me better. Maybe some options I should have ordered factory, whatever. The UFC, they were the cheapest on anhydrous, so that's where we're getting it from. I do not like their undercarriages on these tanks, but some of their tanks do have the newer undercarriages. It is what it is, I guess. And the price of the product we're applying, I thoroughly do not like. I do not like that. But that's a topic for another video. So anyway, a lot of low sunshine coming in here. Hard to make videos this time of year, but we're getting it done while we got good weather. According to the last forecast out today, looks like 7 more good days maximum. So I am hustling because these days are short. Anyway, hopefully you got something out of this video, and if you do things entirely different on your operation, that's great. If you're happy to share, even better. I like learning and exploring new things, but what may work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. So if all you're here to do is belittle my videos and run everything down, go make your own and do your own content somewhere else. I don't care. I am happy to learn, but not thrilled to be put down for anything that just doesn't pertain to you personally. That's just being a selfish asshole. Anyway, hope you liked this video, and there'll be a lot more in-depth, really good ones coming up. Got some cool stuff we're going to talk about.